Hi, everybody, and welcome to Alicia Dianne Art. My name is Alicia Dianne, and I am here at Illustrator, graphic novelist, and I'm going to be working with you today on graphic novel series. So, thank you so much for coming. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set up my camera for the back. I think I remember this time after a few times of like failing miserably at trying to figure out how to switch my cameras. I think I finally have figured it out now. So I'm going to switch my camera view so you guys can see what I'm doing on my other side. So let's see if it will let me. Let's open this up. Alright, so let's open up camera. And it should, let's see, show camera B. That's not right. Now it's not even showing. How come it's not? Am I plugged in? I think we're plugged in. Oh no, we're not. Oh, no wonder why. It's not plugged in. That makes sense. Okay. So yay. Okay, so that's why it wasn't plugged in. So sorry for that. Obviously, it's not going to work if it's not plugged in. The microphone. Okay. Is it connected? Alright. I have to just keep double checking because I don't want, like, I've had like some crazy experiences before where like I would try and record like an entire video and would be on here for like an hour and a half, and then there would be no sound when I got to the other side, and it was so disappointing. So I just want to make sure that that never happens again. So let's go ahead and zoom in our comic here. Let me show you what I did last week. So last week I finished spread 12. So this is how it came out. You can see it full color. I added my shadows. And on this one, this is like the second half of it. So you can see this is all my bright colors and lighting. And so that's how the last spread came out. So I was just starting it out when I was doing the color on last week's videos. I just wanted to show you the final product. So today we're going to be continuing where we left off. Quick, not quick. Let's see. Let's see what I want to talk about today. I did want to talk about, because I do want to do a book club with Cartoon Arts Center. And welcome anybody who's watching from Cartoon Arts Center. That is my meetup and online art group. Everything goes through the Alicia Dianne Art Company, so Cartoon Arts Center is a part of that, and that's just our community portion. We have been like a good amount of members showing up, so that's good. Especially this year, it's been a really nice turnout so far. I've been seeing a lot of people have been active, even a lot of people that weren't really active last year. I'm seeing a lot of people in like the illustration world, character designing world, and in that whole group posting a lot, getting the new year off to like really be active in their social media. And I'm really seeing one of the things that's really helping a lot of people is the that caricature challenge, which the name of it is like if you go to like caricature.org, it's ICB something but I'm pretty sure like it's caricature.org, and it's a whole organization, and they do an event every year. I think in LA here, and it's really for people who are in cartooning, people who are in caricature, and they have like a whole event, and they're doing like a January. I don't know. It might go into February. It looked like there was a pretty long list of like people in pop culture to caricature. So I've been seeing a lot of my like friends and colleagues posting stuff, posting their caricatures. So I think that's been pretty cool to see on Instagram. I have not been making caricatures because trying to make 2 books right now. So like I don't want to overwhelm my plate. It's already pretty full right now. So I think I'm just gonna stay where it is. And that's one of the things actually that I did also want to talk about too is just having your plate too full. I think it's good to have things that you need to do, but at the same time, you always got to be aware of how much you're packing on. And I'm always a little bit kind of speaking to myself when I'm making these videos because it's something that I notice in myself and something that I'm trying to get a better hold of because I want to challenge myself and I want to do more things, especially in the community part and in the self-publishing world. But I'm also trying to make sure I don't get ahead of myself because I am only one person. I like to think and hope that I can accomplish that if like 3 or 4 people were working at the same time. But I'm quickly reminded that I do not have the capacity or anywhere close to get that kind of a scale done. And I think I talked last week about it's getting time too, where I'm also starting to do class prep for my comics class and animation class, and I still have to finish the examples for those classes. So that's going to be a bit of work over the next 2 weeks. But I still like, oh man, I want to fit in time for this book club because there's this book that I really, really want to read, and I want to read it. I would prefer to read it as a community because it's a topic that, for me, it's been such a struggle to like get through, and I know that other artists, especially character artists, have this issue as well. And the topic is perspective. And I know like it took me a long I still like don't know perspective like the right way. I'll say that I don't know the right way to do perspective. I do it kind of my way, and I kind of like figure it out, and it looks kind of right because I mean I use references, and I have gotten pretty good at eyeballing. But that's basically what I'm doing is eyeballing because I don't know like all the techniques. I just started picking it up when I was starting to read this book, and it was making sense to me. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Why didn't I see that before? But the thing is, it's like you don't know what you don't know, and I just had no idea. And that's why I wanted to like start over with the book. I didn't get that far into it, so I was like, all right, I want to start it over and do it with Cartoon Arts Center. And I would love for like Cartoon Arts Center to have its own book club, but I'm just worried or nervous that I'm like, all right, when would I put that in? Like, do I have time to do another meeting every week, or what would that look like? Or if I didn't do it every week, I feel like it would take too long to finish the book. But man, I still haven't figured it out yet. I still am trying to figure out even just sharing my newsletter regularly, because I want to be able to like be have it come out at the same time. I don't necessarily post or share my newsletter at the same time. I have it scheduled to share it every Monday, but don't write enough to have it. I don't know. I think the idea is one of those things. Certain things just kind of make me a little bit nervous to do, and when it makes me nervous to do, I just kind of put it off a little bit. And that's another part or aspect I think that we can touch on, because for a long time that stops me dead in my tracks from making art, and it does still in some areas. Like I start getting nervous about doing acrylic painting because I'm afraid, like I'm anxious rather, that I'm gonna mess it up somehow, or that I'm not gonna do it right. And I feel the same way sometimes, which is starting, thank God, to go away. I was feeling that way for a long time with digital painting, and I'm getting out of that now, but only after I really kind of studied, studied a couple of things, and then picked up some things by accident. Like you don't understand, when I was coming up in art school, digital painting was not what it is today. It was not like this beautiful medium. It was very like still new. It still looked like 90s. Everything was oversaturated. Everything had too much color in it, too much of the wrong color in it. People in my grade or in my field in animation weren't getting taught color theory or anything like that. I had to go back to school later to learn color theory, and it's something that I feel like you don't really just learn in one class. It's something that you kind of have to keep practicing to get used to. But I think the gist of it is to see the colors within colors, if that makes sense. See the colors within colors, like be able to look at something and be able to say, oh, I can see the red in that, I can see the yellow in that, I can see the blue in that, and be able to recognize that, so that way you can get a feel for how to mix that color, and also what colors kind of feel good together. And then there's the idea of not having too many colors that are calling for your attention. Like you want to just have one spot or one area that's calling for your attention in a single image. And that's something that you really have to think about with multiple images when you're doing something like a comic, because they're not just looking at one image at a time. They'll go over and they'll start to look, but when they turn that page, they're looking at the whole spread. And it's something that you really have to take into consideration, is like your entire spread, because it's being seen first as one, and then they come back and they look at it as individual. So color theory is really important when you're doing comics, when you're doing graphic novels, when you're doing an illustration piece, and it's really important in animation too. But the thing is, typically, I mean, in a traditional sense, the animator is not even worried about that, because the animator is only doing their line art. But nowadays, when so many of us are trying to make our own content, we're doing everything. And if that's the case, you really need to learn everything, because you can't hand it off to the color department for them to color if it's just you in your bedroom or in your homemade office, like me, which was supposed to be a dining room, I guess, or a living room. It's converted into my studio. And you have to then learn and teach yourself how to do all these different aspects. Some of it is going back to school and taking the extra classes, and some of it is just continuing to take what you learn and just keep on applying it over and over and over again. I was watching this documentary yesterday on Netflix, and it's called Work. And it's like, the jobs, what we do all day. It's like narrated by Barack Obama. I'm pretty sure that he produced it because he seems like really invested in it, like he produced it. And it's a really good show. I'd seen it like passing on Netflix, but wasn't really sure if I wanted to watch it. And then I looked at it and I was like, I had no idea that Barack Obama had anything to do with it. But I just saw it yesterday and I was like, let me put this on while I'm doing my drawing. So I'm working on my illustration and I have this playing in the background, and they're talking about all these different types of jobs, and I think really the point of it was like the different class of jobs, like being a blue collar worker, or like a minimum wage worker, and then like they have what they called there was something before the dream job, because there's like these different stages. There's a middle class worker, and then there's something else, and then they have the dream job, and then they have the boss. And it was the second tier. The guy who was kind of happy with his job, he liked his money, but he really considered himself to be a musician. And one of the things that he said that stood out was like, I'm never gonna make enough money like doing music full time, so that's why I do this job, so I can fund my music. And it seems like a really reasonable, responsible in some ways thing to say, but I'm like, at the same time, as an artist, and I feel like musicians and artists are in the same boat, we're both creative thinkers. I mean, you can call us both artists, but one would be like a performing artist and the other is a visual artist. Okay. My thing is, you're not going to get paid anyway if you never get good enough at it to do it full time. If that makes sense. You're never going to get paid like you want to, or like if you don't give it that attention. I mean, you can do it like sometimes, and there are a few people who can work a full-time job and then go home and spend like 6-7 hours on their craft, like playing their guitar or singing or writing a book. There's a few like unicorns that can do that, but most of us can't. And if we're honest with ourselves, we need to recognize and see how much we're really putting into our craft. Because if you're putting in 1 hour a week, or you're just putting in 2 hours a week, or you're just giving it every once in a while, you will never ever be able to get to the level to be professional, because it takes so much more than that. I mean, you can be a hobbyist and you can be a really good hobbyist. Like, I have hobbies also. I don't have a whole lot of time for a lot of hobbies, but I like to dance, and that's something that I'll do like 2 hours a week. But it's not something I want to do as a career, and it's not something I want to do like as a job. It's just something that's for fun, and so I'm fine with doing it 2 hours a week. But for art, if I only did 2 hours a week of art, I would be so much farther behind than I am right now. I mean, I still feel like I have a long way to go, and I do. But if I was just putting in 2 hours a week, I wouldn't be happy. I'll tell you that much. I definitely wouldn't be happy, as I've had like 40-hour jobs, and I see like I don't have the energy to then come home after a long day and then get back in my art. I just don't have the energy, and for me, I feel really unsatisfied in that sort of a lifestyle. And so for me, I'd rather take a pay cut and work less hours to be able to have the extra time to do this. And I think, do I think anybody can do that? I do, but I also think it has to be like, you have to kind of think like what it is you're willing to sacrifice, and you kind of have to be a little bit creative too, and like how to sacrifice. Because right now, I pay bills. Yeah, I pay bills, but it's not all on me to pay the rent. And if it was, I wouldn't be living where I'm living. And for my response for that, for someone who does have to pay their own rent, I would rather live with someone else, even if that means moving back home with a parent. Um, and I know that sometimes people too, like, don't, like, their parents won't even let them do that. But I think find somebody, and that's where too we have to really invest in relationships and can't neglect relationships. And I'm not saying that you should use somebody. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying is make the sacrifice of either having a roommate or finding a way to live in a less expensive way so that you can still devote the time to your artwork if you're not making enough money to live on it yet. Because I feel like if you don't put in the time to work on your art, and that's, I mean, what's the average? I think on average it should be a couple hours a day, average. Because some days you work longer and some days you work short. For me, it's never the same amount of time every day. It's never. Like, there might be one day where I'm working 10 hours and then the next day I'm working 1 hour. So it's never the same, but the average amount should be like 3 hours a day, at least, to be able to continue, like, progressing. So not 3 hours a week, 3 hours a day on average. So, I mean, we can add that up and see how much that equals up to. So we can see, like, what that looks like. And really see, well, how much time am I devoting? How much time do I have? And are you satisfied that way? Because I, personally, am really, really not satisfied if I can't make art. And I know that it is a privileged place to be in, but it's also, I don't know. Is it really, though? I think I've just heard that so many times. Like, it's a privilege to even, like, go to a master's program for art. It's a privilege to be able to do your art when you're not making money on it yet. In some ways it is, but at the same time it's just really is being who you are. I feel like if you're really an artist, if it's really your passion, and it's harder to not do it and you feel unhappy when you don't do it, I feel like that is more like of a sad situation, because I feel like that's something that you will definitely regret. Like, if you continue to just shove that down. It's never healthy to shove down any emotions. And you shove down your passion and you just, like, shove it down and say, well, it's art, it's a privileged thing to do, and you just keep pushing it aside and just ignoring it when it's, like, been calling to you your whole life, probably. I think that's a sad place to be, because I don't even feel like it's privilege. It's just, that's who you are. That's how I think. That's how I think. I think every artist should be able to be in a creative workspace and to have that time for their art. And I think it's up to us too to really shut people up when they try to tell us, and they will try to tell us that our art is not important, because this is part that goes along with it. And then I think at some point we can't really get offended, because it does go with the territories. Even if it's somebody, I mean, hopefully it's somebody that you don't care about too much. I mean, if I'm honest, hopefully it's someone whose opinion is just like, yeah, whatever. But it's harder when it's somebody you really care about and they're like telling you what you're doing is not important or not as important as something else. But it's really up to us to say to whoever it is, or like, no, what I'm doing is important. Or you know what, to just not talk to that person. Or especially not talk to them about art. And just don't give them that time. You need to find other artists too. It can get really lonely in this type of work too, because I mean, most of the time, even if you're working in a studio, which I haven't yet, but from what I've seen on my visits, you have your cubicle or your small office, and you have your Cintiq, and you're just, working most of the day on art, and that can be really satisfying. But you also need to have that time to connect to other creatives, whether it's on your lunch break or you're going to some sort of class after work or whatever. You still have to find a time to connect with other artists. Make sure that you're making friendships. I mean, so many people worry about networking all the time, but what about like your real friendships? That's what really is gonna be a lot more coming in handy when you need a job anyway. I mean, a lot more people are gonna hire a friend, and they're gonna hire like someone that they quote unquote network with. So I think having friends, I'm learning. I'm learning still how to really make friends, and being intentional about making friends in the art world. And is it easy? No, not usually. It's not always like an easy thing to do, but I think it's important. And everything that's important is not easy. And vice versa. So where do we go from here? It's a good question, and it's a fair question. Where do we go from here? How do we find our way? I think it's just continuing to keep going. I think that's like the biggest, it seems like the most obvious thing, but I also think it's the most important thing, because there's so many times where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm never gonna finish this series. But actually, I don't think, it's not even that I don't think I'll finish, it's just like, oh god, this is taking forever. And that's how I think to it. I think that's more like where my brain ends up falling into, oh, this is gonna take forever. When I think in that way, I feel it's discouraging. But I never think, well, I'm not gonna do it, because I'm so committed to it that I know that I'll do it. I know I'll finish. But it's when I tell myself stuff like, it's gonna take me so long. I'll be 99 and a half when I'm finished, that I start to feel discouraged, or I feel like working on something else or whatever. But when I just tell myself, just put the tape down. Just put down the tape and start painting. Just start painting. Then I don't think about it. I don't think about how long it's going to take. Then I just work on it. And then one more spread gets done. And then one more spread gets done after that. And then one more spread gets done after that. And I feel like that's the ticket right there. And it seems really boring or obvious or whatever. But I think that's the only way to really do something, especially if you know it's like a big project. And that's when you gotta know that what you're doing is really important. It's really important to you. I got the opportunity on Saturday night to go to this panel talk, which was really cool because I had never heard of these artists, but I haven't heard of a lot of things. And they are really super accomplished. Um, it's There are two concept artists, and they do most of their concept art for feature film, but they've also done some concept art for animation, I believe, as well. But I think the majority of what they do is for feature film. And also, leading the panel, or the moderator, was the director of Into the Spider-Verse. And it was all three of them were black men. And I was like, wow, because I had never seen a panel of artists in this field that were all black men. It would have been like super cool if one of them was a woman, honestly. But it was still really cool. And it made me excited, like wow, I'm seeing this because it's so rare. I'm like, I mean, even black and brown in general it's not hardly ever seen in this field, but especially black. I've met a lot more Latinos in animation than blacks for sure, and I've met a lot more Asian in animation for sure. But you don't see, or like in concept art, whether it's live action or whether it's animation, don't matter. In the concept world, seeing just black artists is rare, like super rare. And it's not because we don't want to be in the industry. Like, that's why I moved to LA, because I wanted to be in concept art and animation, and and I've met other people who want to be in it, but seeing people who actually succeeded, it's been very rare. But what's really awesome about the talk that I went to is that these three men, the two concept artists, alongside another artist who wasn't there, started a company just for that purpose, for the purpose of sharing art, or hiring on concept artists from black and brown communities. And that was like the whole intention behind their company. And their company is 9B Collective. You can look them up. They're on Instagram, and they played their demo reel and everything, which was really nice. They worked on between them, they worked on Black Panther. They worked on Moon Knight. Gosh, there was a lot. There was a couple of different Marvels that they'd worked on. Captain Marvel. What else? Was it all Marvel movies? It seemed like it was a lot of Marvel. Honestly, it was a whole lot of Marvel, but it's really good stuff. And there was some other stuff too, but I can't remember. But it was a lot of Marvel that they worked on. And so I was, looking at that. But I tell you this because if you are a person of color, or if you want to support people of color in the industry, which is always great, you can look them up. And I know they have some sort of a way that they take portfolios, and I know that you need to do that, submit it through their website, and they have a process, a formal process for that. So they said don't send them your portfolio on Instagram, but you can follow them on Instagram, and if it's something that is appealing for you, go ahead and look up their website, because I think that can be like super helpful for a lot of people. I'm definitely gonna submit my work to them as well. I'm in the process right now of updating my portfolio. it feels like a never-ending thing, but yeah, I'm updating my portfolio again. I'm gearing it towards children's books right now, and I really want to get my foot in the door of the children's books world. So I'll be updating my portfolio in the coming months, and gearing it directed at children's books. And so we'll see what happens with that. But I would definitely like to submit them my portfolio, and definitely be open for some freelance work as a concept artist for sure. I will always be open for that, because it's just like, duh. Of course I'll be open for that. I just want to do children's books full time, because I think I found my realm. And it took me a while to accept it or like realize. I think realize is a better word. It took me a while to realize it, even though that was like the first thing I did, like after I got my associate's degree, was illustrated children's book in partnership with my mom, which we're actually redoing the whole book to re-release, and I'll let you know when that's ready to go. So hopefully that will be another release for this year. Definitely should be released this year, along with two other books I want to release this year myself, and then maybe along with the current freelance job I'm doing, hopefully I do a couple of other freelance children's books. So I really want to get my butt in the field. And you know what's really cool? I didn't even know this existed, but there's all kinds of book conventions, book festivals, children's book festivals, and I was like, man, I think I heard of like the children's book festivals before, even though I've never been. I've heard about it, and then I was like, well, if they have children's book festivals, do they have young adult festivals? And I was like, probably don't, because this probably just falls into like the Comic-Con, right? And then I looked it up, and then there's a whole bunch of them, and they have specifically ones for like people of color, and for like ones that have stories with characters of color. And I was like, this is what I needed to find. This is the ticket, because I didn't even know they existed. And that's the thing too, it's like, stay connected, because even the panel talk can like inspire you to look something up that you never looked up before, and that can lead you on a path to finding what it is that you need. Because for Jaydi's story, this comic that I'm working right now, which this is the second book, and I want to release it this year, and I will release it this year, and I'm like thinking of like, you know, I want to like launch it up, and I'm so grateful that I had a successful Kickstarter with the first book, but I really want to get the second book like out there. Like, I want to get it in people's hands. I want to sell hundreds and then thousands of copies. I just want it to make an impact, because it's a really strong story, I feel. And I'm like, man, like, do they have young adult conventions or like young adult book like festivals that I can? And there's a bunch, and I'm like, this is perfect for this book. It's exactly what I needed. And you see, I didn't even think about that before, but then, I mean, look at what God is doing. It's like you go down one door, and then all of a sudden you see different possibilities. And that's a great thing, because I didn't even know, like I said, I didn't even know it existed. And it just starts sometimes with listening to podcasts, listening to artists speak. I was listening to like Steven Silver this morning, and also like I listened to all of his art talks, and I'm listening to them, some of them for the third time, but I re-listen to things. And I just want to keep my ears connected to something that will inspire me. And so, like, even that, like, spawned me off on like, well, maybe if I can look this up. And then I just start looking stuff up, and then you can write things down, keep your notes, and then one thing will lead you to something else. And that's something that took me a while to realize that I can do. Like, yeah, we all know that everything is at our fingertips and that we can have access to everything on the internet, but sometimes just knowing that generally can get in our way because we're just like, well, there's everything, and we don't know what to look for. But once we know what to look for, then we can really get ourselves on that right track to be like, oh, this is what I needed, and then really make some progress. And that's when you really start to see like things start falling in place. But it takes, it takes that effort. So like, attend the panel talks, even if you're too shy to ask questions. I was like shaking to ask a question, and then I finally like just raised my hand, and they didn't call on me anyway. But I still like raise my hand. Most of the time I don't because I'm too shy. Or not shy, I don't want to say that's not the appropriate word. I don't consider myself to be shy anymore, but I am nervous around industry professionals because I still feel like, I don't know if it's like the imposter syndrome, where just I don't feel qualified to like talk to them, or like they'll think I'm a loser or something. But that's like, I mean, I'm being honest, that's how I think. Like I can't ask them anything. Like, I don't have anything important to say to these people who have made it already. And it's obviously not true, but I mean, I can get in my head and I feel nervous, so I don't say anything. But every once in a while I'll raise my hand. And so they didn't call on me, but the good thing is that even though they didn't call on me, when I went and looked them up after I got home and I found their Instagram page, I was able to go ahead and follow them. And then when I saw that they had a flyer for the event I went to, which was at the Academy Museum, which if you've been listening to any of my talks, you probably know my husband works there, so he's actually the one who got me the ticket. I think it's a free event, but you have to like register. So anyway, I saw the flyer and I just on their Instagram, and so I just commented like one of the things I wanted to ask was just, or one of the things I wanted to say to them was just like, thank you guys for what you're doing, and it was refreshing to see you all. See too many black artists, or I haven't seen black artists doing this, and it's really, just letting them know I appreciate what they're doing. And that was great because the guy, one of the founders, started following me. And I wasn't expecting that at all. I wasn't expecting anything. I'm just like, what, let me say something, because at least they'll see it. And that was like my only like hope. I was like, at least they'll see my comment. I was like, I looked to see how many comments there were. It was like less than 10. I was like, great, all right, they'll see my comment, if nothing else. And that's all I really wanted, was them to see it. And it was just kind of super happy that that founder started following me. So, and I started following him and the other founders as well. Before he started following me, as soon as I looked them up, I just, started following all of them. So, I say all this to say, stay connected to the community. And that's one thing that I feel like is a nice thing, that is not an overwhelming part of you going in your career. I know, like, I did want to kind of stay on topic with feeling like keeping yourself grounded and not getting overwhelmed. But I feel like that's one important part too, is just like making sure that you stay connected. And that's not a hard thing to do, because usually these events are really fun. Like, you get and one of the things that's hard to like ask questions is because like most of the questions get answered just while they're doing the regular talk. They usually save all the questions for the end, but I'm like, by the end I'm like, man, you guys answered everything that was in my head. So that's a good thing. So even if you're like, too nervous to ask a question, you'll still get some really good information. And every event that you attend, every talk that you listen to that's related to the industry is going to give you ideas. Even if it's not the same day, like, it will pop into your mind. It just sparks that inspiration, you know what I mean? It just sparks something that keeps you plugged in. And I think that's really, important. No matter how much of the work you're doing, you know, independently by yourself, you still want to stay plugged in as much as possible, because you never know, like, who you might work with, who might inspire you, who you might inspire, where you're gonna get somebody could want to order 200 of your books. Somebody could want, that animation pitch bubble that you have. Somebody could want to produce that and you never even heard of their company before. But if you stay plugged in, you're going to hear about opportunities, people, things that, you hadn't heard of, and it will open more. It will just open more for you. Even if it's just your mind, it will open more for you. So I really think it's an excellent thing to be connected and to get connected and stay connected. And have that thing that you're working on, that one thing that is like more important than any other project. Like, have one main project. People say it's not good to put all your eggs in one basket, but have one big egg. have a couple of small eggs, or like have one bigger basket than your other basket. You have one big egg and one big basket, and then you have a couple of, medium-sized eggs over here, and you have like a smaller basket over there, and a medium basket over here, but you have like your main basket, and you have your main egg. And that one you want to decorate the most, spend the most time on, make it look the prettiest. You're going to make all of your eggs look pretty. I know I'm being way deep in the analogies now, but that's how I see it. You want to make everything you're doing look, look good because it's representing you, but really make sure that you're giving your main project the attention that it needs. Even if it means, that you need to rethink about how much time you're devoting to your day job, because you want to have money to be able to get, like, especially if you're self-publishing, you want to be able to get books printed and any type of like marketing materials printed, and all of that is important. But most important is getting your projects done. If you don't get your project done, it's no merchandise, it's no nothing. It's no printing, it's no anything, because it's no selling, it's no pitching, it's nothing if you don't have a finished project. And people don't even look at you the same way. There's so many times where I tell people I make graphic novels and I'm like, oh, but have you finished anything? Like, they don't say it exactly like that, but they kind of do. They expect you to not have something finished, because it's probably what happens most of the time. Is most of the time they'll speak to somebody that's a writer, or is it somebody that wants to make a comic, or somebody that wants to make a book, and they say, yeah, I'm working on this, and but is it finished? The answer is no. And you want to be that person that catches them off guard, that says, yeah, actually it is, and you can buy it on Amazon. And I can say that now, but before, I wasn't, I would only, I was in the process. Everybody has to go through that production phase, but you want to finish and make sure that you do finish, because people will, like, you see their eyes open a little bigger or a lot bigger sometimes. Like, oh, they always expect you to say no, when they ask you if you finish something. And it's really fun to be able to say yes and to say, oh yeah, by the way, here's my business card. And yes, I am about that life. I am about finishing books, and I have one in the world, and I'm about to have 2 and 3, and I'm about to have 4 books in the world. And people respect you more. And I didn't even think about that, really. I wasn't thinking about like who was gonna respect me more when having my own like book. I just wanted to make my book because I cared about my project. But it's a nice bonus because I didn't realize that people stand up and they take you seriously once they realize that you've done something and you have something in the world. They're like, oh, okay, maybe you're somebody I want to work with. And you never know, like, it's so crazy how many people want to work with you, like, that you might not even realize opportunities will be coming from. And then people mention you out of nowhere, like, somebody yesterday in my group of ladies that I talked to, and it's like really like a church group, we're like kind of like a bunch of old ladies. And one was like, oh, Alicia, yeah, she's got a book out. And I'm like, yeah, actually I do. But it's crazy, but it takes you to a different tier. Like you can be like, yes, this is what I'm doing, this is what I do, and I take it seriously, and this is my job. I'm not, I don't just doodle an hour a week. Like this is what I do. This is my job. And you won't be able to say that if you don't take your work seriously, if you don't give it the time that it deserves. So you have to give it that time. I really feel like you have to. Like, you owe it to yourself, to the industry, especially if you have like a really like personal story. It's like, it doesn't have to be a true story, but it could be something that's just like close to your heart. And I think those are the type of stories that really have an impact. Like, this is a fiction story, but all the little, it's like a puzzle of true pieces combined into a fiction story. If that makes sense. But that's kind of what it is. It's like little puzzle pieces of true stories. Just jigsawed together. And then it makes something else. It makes something new. It makes something worth telling. And that's all that really matters, is you just have to make something that's worth telling. And if it's something that you care about, that's all you need to know if it's worth telling. If you care about it, then you'll find somebody else. It might take a while. I'm not saying that it's easy. Because God knows it's not easy for me. I'm still like trying to find my audience, really. I mean, I have a couple of people who've yeah, I sold a few, but didn't sell 100 books. Not yet. So I'm still finding my audience. So whenever you have your book, then you'll be able to, it's a good problem to have. You say, oh yeah, I have to find my audience to sell my book to. So, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad place to be. Sounds like you're figuring stuff out. But you don't just give up on it either. Don't just make the book and then just leave it there. Because then nobody will ever find it. You do have to actually make the effort to say, alright, well, now I'm going to keep looking to find my audience. And now I'm just going to keep looking to find those places where my audience might be. And now, almost, 2 years now after I released my book, I'm now seeing, okay, this is the first time I'm doing this. So now, it's going to take longer for me to figure it out the first time than someone who's maybe more experienced than me. But at least I'm like, I feel good that I'm like, all right, well now at least I know where I need to go to figure out the next part of this equation. I'm like, oh, okay. There are young adult conventions and festivals, and there's, thankfully I live in LA, and there's places and conventions that happen, close to where I live. So that makes it even better. It's like, okay, this is something that I can, actually go to without having to worry about traveling expenses, because that's a huge deal. It's like traveling expenses. It takes a lot. But to know that you can find something close by, and if you do live they're all over the country. I've seen like they have in New York, they have in Pennsylvania, here on the West Coast, they have in Texas. You just have to look, and then you can find something in some region where you are. And then you just keep going from there. Just keep going. Okay, trying to think what I want to color next. Alright, maybe I'll do the Jaydi's thing. This purple color. But hopefully, what I'm saying is helpful. And hopefully it makes sense, at least to someone. I know that what I say is not necessarily going to, impact millions and millions of people, and it's not my purpose. If it does eventually, that'd be sure great. But hopefully it's like just trying to help somebody who's where I was and, is learning. Maybe they're doing it for the first time. Because it's hard. It's hard, and it's hard to stay focused. Especially if you're gonna feel unsure about yourself. I was gonna say if you feel. But you will, especially that first time, because like, man, I don't know if I can even do this. I don't know how to do this. Maybe I'm not great with color or whatever their perspective, and I wasn't either. And there's a ton of like the spreads that I had to do over in my first one because I messed the color up so bad. And I was like, oh, that's not going to print. But you learn, and you just learn from doing it. And that's like really, how many times have I heard that? I don't know, but I feel like it's worth repeating, because you just learn from doing it over and over and over again. And you'll have that satisfaction of someone like, oh, you finished? Oh, you have something published? And they'll be shocked to hear that, but you'll be able to say, yes, I do. Here's my card. Yes, I do. I'm going to be in a show this March. Or whatever. And yes, I do. I'm working on my second one. It'll be out, and you'll be able to have the date. That's my next step. I need to have a date for number 2. I'm hoping over the summer, but I need to have an actual date, like day and month. Okay, so that's my next step in the journey. And I will just have to ask, what is your next step? Like, what is it? What stage are you at? Are you doing your first book? Are you trying to put out a web comic? Are you wanting to get into children's book illustration or young adults, or both, like me? It's something to think about, like to really seriously think about, and ask yourself, what is my next step? If you haven't already yet, it is vision board season. Mine's not finished yet, but I've been doing some thinking and cutting some papers out to get mine going, or get it off the ground anyway. So that's something to just, keep in mind, think about over this next week until we meet again, because unfortunately our time is up. So I just want to say thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to just talk with me, listen to me, hopefully, and see my process and hear my process. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I do really appreciate it. Make sure you check out aliciadianne.com and cartoonartcenter.com for the meetup. And until next time, be grateful, live balanced, and always, always, always be yourself. That's the most important part. And you got to remember, if you're an artist, be an artist. Put the time in. Average 3 hours a day. It makes a difference. It makes all the difference, and you'll be a lot happier. At least I am. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.